Final Fantasy VII is one of the most iconic RPGs ever created. Across its iconic locations, fascinating and endearing characters, and unforgettable story, Final Fantasy VII made an impact on the PlayStation 1 that still rings loudly to this day. I was forever moved after stepping into the world of Gaia for the first time, mesmerized by the vision, story, and immersion the game achieved. To this day, it still remains one of my favorite games of all time. Remaking the title was never going to be easy, as a game of this caliber had so much to live up to. It took Square Enix over 20 years to do it, but ultimately, the original creatives behind the game came together and decided to tackle the project before anyone else in the company could. In 2015, Final Fantasy VII Remake was unveiled, and I don't think anyone could have guessed just what a wild ride we were in for. Acting as a larger-than-life recreation of the opening hours of Final Fantasy VII, the first title in the Final Fantasy VII Remake project offered incredible character and narrative depth, alongside one of the greatest battle systems ever implemented in an RPG. FF7 Remake redefined what a remake could be, reimagining the world we all have come to love and the story we hold so dear. After a thrilling and subverting conclusion, we were left with one statement: the unknown journey will continue. 4 years later, the time has come to continue that journey. Square Enix has graciously given me weeks of early access to the highly anticipated Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the direct sequel to 2020's Final Fantasy VII Remake. With this, I've spent over 110 hours exploring the planet, completing almost everything the game has to offer. From the beginning, it was clear that Rebirth was larger than anything I'd ever imagined. As I stepped atop the hill overseeing Mount Nebel in the opening sequence of the game, a triumphant rendition of the Final Fantasy VII main theme came in and almost threw every single emotion possible at me. It was here I knew that this wasn't just any other game. Rebirth would be an experience I'd never forget. Picking up directly after the end credits cutscene of Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, Cloud and the party are resting in Calm, the nearest settlement outside of Midgar. It's here that you're immediately thrust into a flashback of 5 years ago, taking control of Cloud on a mission with Soldier First Class Sephiroth in Nibelheim. As Cloud tells the story of Sephiroth's fall to the party, you play in the past and see the events unfold for yourself. The Nibelheim flashback immediately sets the stage for the grand adventure to come, with stunning sights and loads of new mechanics not seen in Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's clear from the beginning that the journey that lies ahead is not bound by fate. Immediately after finishing the flashback, Tifa and Cloud step away to the rooftop, where she shares her concerns with Cloud's recollection of the past. This conversation never happened in the original Final Fantasy VII, yet it feels like it was there all along. Naturally, there are countless new conversations, changes, and additions to the main story in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Each edition feels so expertly crafted, truly tying together the narrative in ways I never expected. The opening chapter is a delightful reunion. You can feel both the tension of the party and the lingering effects of the escape from Midgar. Leaving Calm, you step into the first major region of the game, the Grasslands. This was the first moment I experienced the greatest offering of Rebirth, the world. It's almost hard to describe just how big the world is. The map is divided up into regions, massive explorable areas with multiple points of interest. Each has an unfathomable amount of locations, sites, and areas to explore. I've played through entire games where the map was just as big as one of Rebirth's regions. They are truly that colossal. The same can be said for each iconic location. Looking from below at Cosmo Canyon or Junon was nothing short of magical. It is almost unbelievable that the development team at Creative Business Unit 1 has managed to recreate the scale that was present in 1997's Final Fantasy VII. Rebirth introduces new mechanics to allow for traversal throughout the world. Right from the opening mission, you'll notice that you can now scale certain walls, climb up ropes, grapple across posts, and so much more. By far my favorite new feature involving exploration is the new terrain action button. By pressing circle at any time, Cloud can jump over rocks, roll forward, or climb ledges. This opens up movement in a way not possible in FF7 Remake. I felt in control of the game, with exploration wide open to observe any areas I chose to go to. Each region challenged my knowledge of these features by combining them together, utilizing them in ways I didn't think of, or even throwing a new mechanic at me. Fundamentally, this completely changed the way I observed and interacted with the environment. As I progressed through the main story and traversed through the different regions, my jaw dropped more times than I could count seeing the sights. The world is beautiful yet cruel. It's filled with life at every corner, yet there's a consistent reminder of the imminent threat posed by both the Shinra Electric Power Company and Sephiroth. For example, the Corel region features a luscious tropical environment where Costa del Sol resides. Yet as you head west, the remnants of an exploded reactor and dried up desert serve as a reminder of the planet's suffering. The environmental storytelling is like no other. It's beautifully executed and paints the main themes of the game in every area of the adventure. These main themes tie together the driving force of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, its story. Tasked with hunting down Sephiroth, the party sets out into the world to track the former soldier. Starting from the Nibelheim flashback and ending at the Forgotten Capital, there's a ton of ground to cover, but Rebirth handles it gracefully. Each area plays a key role in the development of both the narrative and its characters, with no moments where I felt the narrative drag. It engages you quickly and doesn't let go. Each chapter has key story events that occur. My first playthrough ended after 54 hours. In the end, I came away adoring the main story of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Covering such a vital stretch of the original game and juggling so many key story scenes, there was so much on the line to get this right, and it ended up being everything I could have ever dreamed of and more. Iconic sequences like Cave of the Gi and Barrett's showdown with Dyne have been enhanced and are more impactful than ever. Massive new sequences have been added throughout the story, featuring new characters, encounters, and completely new areas of the planet. It's genius and wouldn't be possible without the decision to free the story from the shackles of fate. Altogether, Square has crafted a narrative that builds not only off of FF7 Remake, but also the original game and its spin-offs collectively. I was genuinely amazed playing through the narrative as someone who has experienced the full compilation of Final Fantasy VII. So many references and plot points from these titles have been instilled in Rebirth, allowing for both a deeper exploration of the world and a greater impact on the player. For instance, there's a moment in the story where you meet Dr. Sheeran in North Corel. He is a character from Final Fantasy VII Remake Traces of Two Pasts, a light novel about Aerith and Tifa's past penned by Kazushige Nojima. In that novel, it is revealed that he had previously helped Tifa after the Nibelheim incident. This small plot point made the scene of Tifa and Dr. Sheeran's reunion that much more impactful. I found countless plot points like this that truthfully enhanced my experience like no other. Once again, every single addition of change feels expertly placed to create the ultimate version of the Final Fantasy VII story. This narrative depth and quality carries over to all of the side content. This time around, quests are all extremely engaging and offer a plethora of unique stories to uncover. Arguably the weakest part of its predecessor, quality side content that builds off the main story shines brightly throughout FF7 Rebirth. Certain quests had me questioning why they weren't in the main story, and some were hilarious to experience. Each quest is led by Cloud and one other party member, which allows you to get closer to each character and learn more about their past, desires, and feelings. When you're not trekking across the map and searching out pieces of world intel, you might find yourself at one of the game's many cities or areas. Every settlement is brimming with life from top to bottom, with so many activities occurring everywhere. This is immediately noticeable the second you step outside of the calm inn for the first time, as you'll see dozens of NPCs walking around, dancing, and shopping. As I progress through the story, I notice this more and more. Costa del Sol, for example, was running rampant with tourists when Cloud and the party first visited. The tropical paradise is home to all sorts of tourist attractions and minigames, creating a sense of realism with a spot you might not expect to find in FF7. The world feels alive, almost like it's living and breathing. This feeling is even further elevated with the return of dozens of characters from Rebirth's predecessor. You'll find essentially every major NPC from FF7 Remake somewhere in the world, venturing out of Midgar for one reason or another. This design decision creates a cohesive world, one that feels like it's alive and experiencing growth alongside you. I caught up with Jules, who opened a new gym near Mount Corel, and competed to remind him why Tifa was the queen of the gym. Somewhere along the way, I encountered Beck and his bandits up to no good once again. And of course, Johnny made an appearance at Costa del Sol, and somehow there were multiple Johnnies. As you continue to complete quests and push forward in the story, there is no telling who will show up. There's so much to discover and explore, and it's hard to recall the last direct sequel I experienced that built off its characters in a similar manner to Rebirth. Above all else, characters are the heart of FF7. Without them, the story and world would have no meaning. Final Fantasy VII features some of my favorite characters of all time. Every single member of the party has an incredibly detailed backstory with relatable motives and inspiring wishes. Final Fantasy VII isn't beloved just for individual characters though. It's the relationships between these characters and how they overcome struggles together that truly sets them apart from the giant RPG genre. While Final Fantasy VII Remake laid the groundwork, Rebirth has elevated both characterization and the relationships between each of the party members to the next level. As you venture into the world, Cloud begins to open up and have more vulnerable conversations with members of the party. This is especially true for his relationship with Tifa, which has blossomed within Rebirth. Speaking of, Tifa's past is explored within Rebirth, shining a light on her continued unmatchable compassion and empathy towards all, despite everything she's gone through. We all desire to act with kindness towards others, and Tifa is a shining example of that throughout the game. Her friendship with Aerith is also heavily expanded, with all kinds of banter, laughter, and support between the two. I love seeing this unfold throughout the game as I watch two characters who struggled with trust in the past learn that they can rely on one another. Every character gets time to shine. Each has a segment in the main story where you take control of that character and act as party leader. These segments never felt forced in the story, yet they gave an opportunity to shine a light on specific characters at no cost to the pacing or narrative. Rebirth masterfully balances some seriously grim moments with the bright and cheerful ones. Exploring the past of all the characters is beautiful, powerful, and flat out heartbreaking. I couldn't believe my eyes seeing some of the events each party member went through. However, you're able to see the lessons they learned and the motivations they chose to become the people they are today. You can see their growth, will, and determination to make the world a better place. I'm more fascinated and inspired by FF7's characters than ever before. The narrative and cutscenes are just the tip of the iceberg for bonds between party members, though, as new gameplay elements encourage building strong relationships with one another. This is led by the Bonds of Friendship system, which tracks your relationship status with each of the main party members. This system takes into account your conversation choices, quests undertaken, story beats, and synergy skills to place party members at a certain affinity level. This plays into things such as the Gold Saucer Date sequence, where you take the character with whom you have the highest level of friendship. If you aim to get a specific character on the date, you'll need to select certain dialogue choices in favor of them and only take odd jobs where they accompany you. In addition to Bonds of Friendship, the other major new system of bond building in the game is through synergy. Each character has both synergy abilities and synergy skills they can utilize with other characters in combat. To utilize the synergy ability, using ATB will fill the synergy gauge. Once two compatible characters have their gauges appropriately filled, you can unleash a devastating, flashy combo move. Different abilities have different effects, such as increasing limit levels, gaining unlimited MP for a temporary period, or partitioning your ATB gauge into 3 pieces. Experimenting with these abilities and finding out different pairs of characters fight together is a blast. Some of these abilities are absolutely hilarious, as you can experience anything from Tifa pouncing on the ground with Red 13 to Aerith throwing on a pair of shades with Barret. As you progress, you'll be able to unlock new skills and abilities with different pairs of party members. This system was an amazing addition that added even more depth to the already amazing combat system. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has perfected the combat system from Final Fantasy VII Remake. Blending both action combat and turn-based elements is a huge challenge, but FF7 Remake offered a genius blend with the ATB gauge and battle commands. In Rebirth, the combat is everything you remember from the first title in the Remake project, but improved in so many areas you might not realize right away. From new range combat options to aerial combat, you have so many new options at your fingertips to discover and utilize against foes. Truthfully, my favorite thing about Final Fantasy VII might just be the perfect clash of goofiness and seriousness that resonates throughout the entire game. It's a blend that has yet to be matched in the RPG market and is part of what makes the game so special. For a game that deals with serious themes such as life, loss, and environmentalism, it's so charming to experience some of the comedic elements you find throughout Gaia. Final Fantasy VII Remake managed to capture this with hysterical moments in Wall Market like the Honeybee Inn and the Coliseum. Rebirth, however, has elevated this to the next level, with so many lighthearted moments scattered throughout where all you can do is just laugh. New and familiar events occur throughout the game that reflect this fun yet serious tone. Each chapter offers so many fun and forever memorable moments. When you enter Corel Prison for the first time, Solemn Gus, formerly Mr. Coates in the original game, enters the room with a walkout song and dance. Everything about Kate Sith and the Golden Saucer is fun, witty, and truly out of this world. And let's not forget that Red 13 can somehow ride chocobos. The events that make the story so enjoyable and memorable are those that almost make you question how they're possible. I can conclusively say that Rebirth solidifies the FF7 Remake project as the most ambitious remake ever created. I don't think we'll ever see a remake of this caliber again. I believe that the improvements we've seen in Rebirth were only possible thanks to the approach of 3 separate titles, allowing Square Enix to gain confidence and implement new tweaks in each. Rebirth embraces everything that made the original Final Fantasy VII so special, while adding a plethora of new and exciting content that makes it feel like it should have been there all along. It's truly a love letter to what made the original game so iconic, embracing the wackiness and silliness of the original game and blending it all together effortlessly with the incredibly serious themes throughout. We all knew this game was going to be special, but it's more than anything I could have ever imagined. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a celebration of everything both the RPG genre and the video game medium have to offer, with a thrilling story, incredible characters, a massive world, and a perfected combat system. As I reflect upon my time with the game, I can undoubtedly say this was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had with the game. Even in February, it's hard to imagine anything topping FF7 Rebirth as my game of the year. As we head further into 2024 in the post-release phase, the anticipation for the final part of the FF7 Remake project will surely begin to build. It's hard to believe there's just one title left, yet I, for one, have never been more ecstatic to see what awaits at Journey's End. Final Weapon is giving Final Fantasy VII Rebirth a 5 out of 5. Square Enix provided the code for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for review purposes. Please check out the full review in the description.